All right, I want to talk to you today about something that has been on my mind for years. I've been talking about doing this for, I don't even know, 12 years maybe. And I've never felt the time was right. There was always something that came up. And this began really right after Restoring Honor. Restoring Honor was the event that I had in Washington, D.C. Some might remember it. It was August 28th, 2010. And it was on the Mall in Washington, D.C. in front of the Lincoln Memorial. And there were hundreds of thousands of us gathered for the day. People came from all over the country and the world. And that was just an attempt just to say we need honor. Honor is part of our country. Without it, we're nothing. The next year in Jerusalem, we did courage, restoring courage. Honor and courage makes all the difference. But the year after, we did love, restoring love at Dallas Cowboys Stadium. The first spoken word event ever in Dallas Cowboys Stadium, and I think still the only one that was sold out. There is so much for us to learn. A few years ago, we were going to go to Gettysburg, and we had done a lot of work on it already, and it was going to be restoring the covenant. And this has haunted me for years. And so I finally go, okay, we're going to do it. And then COVID happens. I'm like, well, that just, okay. And in my prayers since then, I've been saying, okay, I've got to come up with an event. I've got to come. And then I heard in my prayers, why? You have 12 million people listening to you every day. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. The stronger the feeling got in me, the more urgent it felt, and it was an urgency to learn. What is this? What is the covenant that is so woven into the fabric of America? The Abrahamic covenant, I know. God would bless Abraham and his offspring, and he'd be there, for them. They'd live under his protection and guidance, and they would worship him. He would be their God and his people. It worked for Israel until they failed to remember it, and then they were destroyed and scattered. But in his time, the promise of restoration was fulfilled. No other country ever in the history of civilization has ever been promised to be destroyed, then promised to be restored, and thousands of years later, it happens. Its language and its people are still returning to its original land. That's because they were a covenant nation. Now, America, historically, is a covenant nation. The Pilgrims actually came here to establish what they called the New Jerusalem. They actually thought that they were spiritually completing the journey that began at the Red Sea. And so they said, you will be our God, and we will be your people. They made a promise. They made a covenant. This was later renewed when George Washington first took his first oath of office. There in Lower Manhattan, he raised his hand to the square and his hand on the Bible, and he swore to protect and defend the Constitution. So help me God. And then he said, everybody, we're going to church. And they walked down the street to the church where he prayed for hours on his knees. Prayed for hours. He made a covenant again. In America's darkest time with Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln said, I wasn't a Christian when I was elected. My son died and I didn't become a Christian. But at Gettysburg, he broke. And he would finally obey God and realize that it's not about saving the Union. It is about freeing his people. So even if it meant the end of the Union, he would free all of the slaves. That fall, right after Gettysburg, he traveled up there and he gave a quick speech and he thought, no, he's going to remember this. In fact, he gave the speech away and it was eventually thrown away. But about a month later, he asked Congress to pass a Thanksgiving proclamation to rededicate ourselves to the American covenant. It passed, and people all over the country prayed and humbled themselves and fasted and dedicated their lives, their fortunes, their sacred honor. They dedicated it once again to God's will. Before Gettysburg, before this happened, the Union only won one battle. But after the covenant was made, we only lost one battle. I hate the word covenant. I honestly, all of this stuff makes me so uncomfortable because, but covenants, what is it? Covenants are just promises that actually mean something. When you're in a covenant relationship, there's no getting out of it. It's a word that basically means that we say what we do and we do what we say, and everything that we do and say in this world actually matters. We've come to a place in our country now where we expect that most people are just lying to us all the time. Our president is lying all the time. So was the last one, and the one before that, and the one before that. Our media is lying to us. They have a credibility rating, I think, in the teens. I think it might be 12 in our own lives. Maybe our spouse is lying, or we're lying to our spouse, or worse yet. And this happens to all of us. From time to time, we lie to ourselves. And with all of this lying, truth no longer matters. But you cannot have society or a civilization without truth. So much in America is utterly meaningless. It's why our kids are killing themselves. It's why people are losing hope. Because nothing's real. Nothing's authentic. I can't trust anything. And if that's the way it is and everything is meaningless, then why go on? I think people are starving for something real. They're starving for the truth. And I've only found that in one place. And it's not politics. It's not my job. It's not the things that make me happy. It's not the things that I have. It's none of that, really. The only meaning that really lasts for me, the only thing that grows deeper and more meaningful, my wife, my children, my relationships. The opportunity for each of us to be who we are, who we were born to be. You know, we throw words around like freedom and liberty. What does that mean? Honestly. Oh, we're freedom. What does that mean? To me, it means opportunity to speak, to worship, to live, to work and better myself and our children's lives. We wrote them down in this country as rights. And we also said they come from God. All of the things that have any meaning at all come from God. They're all eternal. If you're doing something today and it doesn't have any connection to the eternal, why are you doing it? Or if you're doing something that doesn't have any connection to the eternal, then why don't you pause before you do it and find the connection? Because that's the only thing that you're going to do today that will last and be meaningful. All these truths that we now deny are eternal. And that is why we're in this epic battle of good versus evil now. This is why we, thank God, peacefully fight today. And nobody's articulating this. We're fighting against something every day. It's, oh, I can't believe it. Did you hear this? I'm so sick and tired of it. I'm honestly just tired of it. I'm not going to fight against anything anymore. And I don't think I ever really have, but I don't vocalize it enough. I'm not fighting against, I am fighting for the things that we used to find self-evident. I'm fighting for the truth. And sometimes that comes at a high cost. Sometimes the truth really hurts. But it will set you free. I'm desperate for something that actually matters. And I have to tell you, I'm going to vote. I recommend everybody. I'll go in my car and I'll rent a bus if I have to, and I'll pick people up and take them to the polls so they can honestly and legally vote. But that doesn't give me enough meaning. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories today. We have a couple of guests. Today, I would ask that you would listen to the entire podcast because we're going to do something in 40 days from now. And I'm starting today, 40 days, 40 nights before, because I want you to truly understand what I'm going to ask you to do in 40 days. I take this topic extraordinarily seriously, but please know I don't take myself seriously in this. I mean, I'm an alcoholic DJ. That's who I am. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a scholar. I am certainly no moral authority. I'm not here to convert you to preach or drill down on doctrine. It's none of that. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm an American that sees the revolution has come to us. It's already begun. I pray for you every day before the show. I ask God, tell me what people need. Tell me what you need. How can I help you? How can I serve you? And so today I begin something that nobody in their right mind would do. I'm responding to an answered prayer. And I'm going to do something that all business and logic and reason would say, that's not going to work. But everything eternal tells me, please join me on this journey.